let's start our live lecture on ecological literacy. Welcome, dear friends, old friends. Welcome. Let's see if we have some participants from some other countries. Not yet, but maybe we will have. So let's start our presentation. Of course, we're going to do it in English because it is an international event. Well, I'm really so happy and so proud to be giving a short lecture in this very esteemed and very important Earth Day. Well, so let me enlarge my, it is better now, I suppose. Okay, so the title of my presentation is Living in Harmony with Nature, and the keyword is sustainability. Well, hello again. I am a professor at Ege University, associate professor, and at the same time co-founder of Zeytince Association for Supporting Ecological Life. And as you can see in the PowerPoint, we have the training center, training facility of our Zeytince Association. We are making a live event from Turkey, from Izmir, and I am the co-founder of this association, which is situated in Izmir, and the school, our Olive Academy, is situated in Karabura. Okay, so let's continue. Well, we have been living humanity has been living in a small world. We were a small world on a large planet for so many years. However, humanity transformed itself into a large world on a small planet. Well, because of why do we say this? Now we are a species which is living in a small planet, so we become the largest world. Well, why do we say this? We inhabited all parts of our planet. We are threatening, most importantly, the stability of the entire planet, of the entire Earth system. Well, the big systems of the entire Earth system. Well, how? Well, the science today is so clear, the science and ecological data is so clear that there are three important challenges with regards ecology. One of them is the biodiversity crisis, the three ecological challenges: the biodiversity crisis, the climate crisis, and the pollution crisis. So these are the three ecological challenges of our time. This is why and how we are now inhabiting a small planet, in a small planet. Okay, so well, challenge one, well, we all know these challenges. We all know these ecological problems already. Challenge one is the biodiversity loss. Well, when we talk about the biodiversity, we mean all the land cover of the earth, the forest, the wildlife, the animals, the plants, and so forth. Well, we know that in terms of biodiversity loss, nearly 1 million species are unfortunately under threat of extinction. Well, our rainforests are disappearing. The plastics is, as we all know, is a very important problem. The plastics, the amount of plastics in the ocean in 2050 will be more than the amount of fish in the ocean. So this is the biodiversity loss. Then comes the climate crisis, the second challenge, ecological challenge, is the climate crisis, which involves the heating of the average world temperature, especially since 1970s, 1960s, as the red lines show here. Well, then, as a result of this climate crisis, the ice is disappearing in the Arctic Ocean, in Greenland, and in Antarctica, in the south part of our planet. Well, the third challenge is all kinds of pollution. Well, in China, for instance, 4,000 deaths per day might be occurring due to pollution of all kinds. So these three challenges. Well, because we've been inserting so much pressure on the Earth systems, on our planet, well, the Earth has started to send us invoices. It started in a way to talk to us. It started to send us invoices with very, very high costs. One of them is that the sea levels are already rising, and this is a very severe threat to small islands, to islands in the ocean and in the sea. Then another invoice sent by our planet. As a matter of fact, our planet was really so patient for so many years. It tried to buffer our pressure, but especially starting from 1990s, nature, our planet, started to send us invoices with very, very high costs. And one of them is the extreme weather patterns. We have been experiencing these extreme weather patterns, well, since basically 1990, such as the floods and hurricanes. This is in 2019, Bahamas. Then this is another hurricane in Bangladesh. It was last year. And do I have to admit? Right. Then the Dorian hurricane, and this is Mexico. So the examples are so many. And well, here is Izmir, Alsancak, our city, hit by a typhoon. And also as a result of especially the climate change, there are heat waves which are causing forest fires. This is California, but we also know about the very, very severe forest fire in Australia. And as a result of heat waves, we have droughts as well. Okay, so these are the invoices the Earth is sending to us. And the last but not the least is the pandemic and the viruses, because now we know that because of the last COVID pandemic, COVID-19 pandemic, well, it has come to us through, it is known as a zoonotic pandemic, which means these viruses are coming from animals to humans. Why? Well, because we are inhabiting the wildlife, because we're inhabiting their homes. Okay, well, okay, so we may give a lot of examples, but also let's look at the positive side. In a way, since 150 years, so at the end of, let's say, 19th century, our current economic model, which has been putting so much pressure on the planet system, but alas, we were not aware of that. We became aware of our pressure on the earth only starting from 1990s. So in the last 150 years, our current economic models, our current way of living, as a matter of fact, increased our well-being a lot. So here this chart shows, for instance, the decrease in poverty only from 1990 to 2015. So the poverty, the poor people living in the world, the number of poor people living in the world decreased a lot. And our material well-being increased. Then also not only material well-being, but as a result of this, our economic models, as a result of high growth rates, as a result of industrialization and so forth, we had a lot of improvement in health and education. So these are the positive sides of our way of living. And yet, this way of living, this way of handling our economies, this way of running our industries, this way of getting in relationship with the nature has come to an end, unfortunately. As I said, we were not really, as humans, aware of the huge pressures we were putting on the earth. We only became aware of these starting from 1990s when the invoices started to come from the earth. So now we are living in multiple crises. So now it is a multiple crisis world. Not only we have ecological problems such as biodiversity, climate, and pollution, but we are also encountering, as a result of the way we live, as a result of the way we run our economies, we are facing, when I say we, of course, I'm referring to the entire world, social and economic problems. Well, so far, therefore, this current way of living, which is not in harmony with nature, which produced all these multiple crises, the dominant narrative, or the thing which we believed in, the dominant narrative was that we it has been that we thought it was possible to have infinite material growth on our planet, because we were assuming that our planet, the Earth, and the nature have an endless capacity because it was so huge and so big. So we were believing that the dominant narrative was that, well, we can increase our material well-being, we can increase our economic growth and wealth as far as we wish, because the sources, the endowments of nature were endless. That was our belief. So in this dominant narrative, Earth has been reduced to an endless resource. However, this narrative is not valid anymore. Now, the science and data is so clear that we, humanity, has entered a new epoch since 1960, a new geological epoch, in fact. So we are in a new geological epoch, which is called the Anthropocene. As I said, we have evolved from a small world in a big planet to a large world on a small planet. In fact, this quotation is from dear Johan Rockström from Potsdam Institute. This is how he expresses this transformation. So since 1960, we have entered a new epoch, which is called the Anthropocene. Well, anthropos for human, and the scene is for the epos. So Anthropocene means the human-dominated Earth. We are the dominant power on the Earth, which means that we hold the future of our planet in our hands. So this is where we are as a result of this dominant narrative, as a result of this current, as a result of the dominant economic and social path we have been following for the last 150 years. So the question is, and this is of course the question for the Earth Day, well, is there hope? Well, we think, and all the international community thinks that is running the Earth Day today. Today is the last day of the Earth Day. Is there hope? Yes, definitely there is hope. But we need a new narrative. The old narrative is not valid anymore. It is not sustainable anymore. We need a new narrative. We need a positive story about new opportunities where everybody, where there is prosperity for everybody, so equality, but at the same time, prosperity in a safe and resilient planet. So the new narrative should be based on living in harmony with nature. Well, there is hope because we know that in the second half of the 2015, all the countries in the world came together and they made a global compact and they signed 2 global agreements. This is happening the first time in history, in fact. In the history of humanity, all the countries, people of the world came together to make a global plan for all the countries. One of them is, as we all know, Sustainable Development Agenda, with 17 Sustainable Development Goals, and the second one is Paris Climate Agreement. Both were signed in 2015. And as I said, both of these agreements, global agreements, are signed by all the nations in the world. Well, nearly all the nations, nearly 200 nations. Well, as a matter of fact, there are only 220 nations in the world. So all the nations signed these 2 agreements. So they made a pledge for a sustainable world, a universal plan for our planet. Well, the Global Goals Agenda 2030, as we all know, involves these 17 goals, and it is a plan for a desirable future for all people on the planet. And we know that it was signed democratically by all the nations in the world. And it involves the 17 targets. Some of them relate to biosphere, so ecological targets or goals. Some of the goals relate to equality, justice, democratic rights, and so forth, the society goals. And then the economy, of course, there are goals with regards to economy. So it is a compact, a transformative, a global agenda for all the worlds, for all the countries, from the richest to the poorest. Okay, so it is a global agenda. Then we have the second climate agreement, which is the Paris Agreement, and the target is so clear. We have to keep the average temperature rise of our Earth maximum 1.5 degrees Celsius, maybe 2 degrees, but possibly 1.5 degrees Celsius. The target, the plan of the Paris Agreement, which is a global and binding agreement for everybody, is also very clear. So here is our plan for roadmap for 2050. As I said, for the first time in history, we have a roadmap. All the people in the world, for all the people in the world, for all the countries in the world, we have a roadmap. As of 2030, we are expected to complete our the 17 SDGs. Then we will go through, and by 2050 we will be living in the planet in a carbon neutral world. So this is the global roadmap. All right. Well, of course, it is a sustainability agenda, and as I said, we need a new narrative. So a new narrative, and the catchword, the keyword of this narrative is sustainability. Well, we all know this concept. Sustainability concept entered into our lives, entered into the international agenda in 1987. Then in 1987, well, sustainability meant, the formal definition was, while we meet our present needs, while we meet our present desires, we have to be aware of not violating the needs and desires of the future generations. So it was a call for to be aware of the needs of future generations. That was 1987. But today, we are in 2020. Well, with all the scientific endeavors, with all the scientific data, and with all that has been happening so far with regards in our planet, now sustainability, especially in terms of, sustainability has the following meaning. It means, well, I think Sururi is going to admit that. Sururi, I cannot admit that. Okay, thank you. Today, sustainability means, in its widest sense, so it has different dimensions: economic, social, and environmental. It means to live in a safe and resilient planet, in prosperity and equality for all. So it is a people planet agenda, as the global Sustainable Development Agenda shows. When we come to ecological sustainability, when we talk about ecological sustainability, please aware of the concept here: to live in a safe and resilient planet. Well, that is the ecological part of sustainability. What do we mean by to live in a resilient and safe planet? Well, definitely it means to live in harmony with nature. But what does that involve? To live in harmony with nature means, or to live in a safe and resilient planet means, in fact, to live within the planetary boundaries of our planet. Well, here are the 9 planetary boundaries. These were brought in by Potsdam Institute, by the works of John Rockstrom and his colleagues, the 9 planetary boundaries. It involves climate change. Well, these boundaries, in fact, of climate change, of aerosol, of oceans, of fresh water, of land systems, as you can see. In fact, these are the boundaries of our planet, which make it possible for our planet to be securing, to be generating life in this planet for billions of years. So ecological sustainability means not to transgress these limits. We shouldn't go to those yellow and red areas, for instance. We have unfortunately already transgressed 2 limits, but so ecological sustainability means to live within these planetary boundaries, not to violate them. All right, so when it comes to our association, Zeytince Association for Ecological Lifestyles, well, at our association, we have been giving ecological literacy training. Let me try to see my time. Sururi, could you tell me how many minutes have I left? Sururi, or
13 minutes.
How many minutes?
13 minutes.
30. 30.
Evet.
30 dakikamız mı var canım?
Evet hocam.
Güzel, 30 dakikamız var. All right. So we continue. Sedef Akgünger has entered. Sururi'cim, ben admit edemiyorum. Sen alırsın değil mi?
Tabii hocam, ben bakıyorum onlara.
Tamam canım, teşekkürler. So let's continue with our association. What have we been doing so far? So in the last 5 to 6 years, as I said, our association situated in Izmir, Turkey, and its training facility is situated in Karaburun, again in the İçin region. Well, our association is an association for supporting ecological lifestyles, and within our different activities, we have been also carrying out ecological literacy training to young people and to adults in Izmir. Well, ecological literacy, so what is ecological literacy? For instance, there's climate literacy now. Well, in fact, there's literacy of a lot of subjects now. There is, I suppose, well, anyhow, so what is ecological literacy? How is it different than other educations on sustainability? Well, in ecological literacy, what we have been trying, what ecological literacy tries to teach or tries to convey, because the methodology is not really a formal methodology. The methodology of ecological literacy is very, very interactive. So what ecological literacy training tries to achieve is to understand the principles which our Earth system, which nature has been sustaining life, has been generating life on our planet for billions of years. So ecological literacy training asks the following question: how does nature, how does our planet or sustain life and regenerate life? No, it has been sustaining and regenerating for 3.5 billion years, as far as I know. And so it asks, so what are the principles? How does nature do this? So how can we understand? That's why, for instance, our slogan is listening to or understanding the sound of the earth. Well, why does ecological literacy training, why does it try to understand these principles which lie at the basis of regeneration of life for billions of years? Because if we can understand these principles, if we can understand these patterns, how nature organizes life, how the earth sustains life on the earth, if we can understand these patterns, if we can understand these principles, then we can imitate them. We can imitate these patterns and these principles in our daily lives, in our economies, in our institutions, in our technology, so that we can live in harmony with the nature. So that's what ecological literacy training does. So it asks the questions: what are these patterns? What are these principles? Well, in fact, 2 principles or 3 principles. Well, there are various principles, but the most important ones are one of the principles of ecology, in the sense that our nature or earth has been sustaining and regenerating life on our planet for billions of years. One of them is the principle of networks. This PowerPoint says, well, what does it say? All members of an ecological community are interconnected in a vast and intricate network of relationships. In fact, this PowerPoint, I got it from Fricro Capra, who is one of the founders of ecological literacy training. So one of the principles is networks. Nothing lives, nothing survives, nothing sustains its life alone by itself in life. We are in a network relationship. So principle 1. Principle 2 of ecology, how life is sustained in the earth for billions of years. The second principle or pattern is that the interactions among the members of an ecological community involve the exchange of resources in continuous cycles. So the cycles, the cyclical way of moving is the second principle of ecology. And as a result of this cyclical movement and as a result of this network, well, the third principle is there is no waste in nature. One species waste is another species food. So the nutrient cycle, for instance, for all the living things, for everything, not only for the living things, but also for the abiotic things, non-living things, the nutrients flow in cycles. There is no waste in according to these principles. Okay, so given these three principles, which are at the basis of how our planet sustains and regenerates life, has been regenerating and sustaining life for billions of years. Based on these three principles, now I would like to give two examples from the international ecological agenda, from from Paris Agreement agenda, and one from another agenda, which involve these two global agreements. Well, we were talking about cycles, sorry. Okay, so that was what I was saying. Well, in this network, we talked about the principles of ecology networks, that all the members of an ecological community are interconnected in a vast and intricate network of relationships. And it says they get their properties, in their very existence from these relationships, relationship between each other and relationship to the whole. Well, so let's talk about this. Well, there is a saying, a very famous saying in all the languages, I suppose, in all the cultures, and it goes on, the whole of anything, the whole is always more than the addition of its parts, of its constituent parts. So what does this mean really? What is this more than the addition of the constituent parts? Well, it refers to this issue of networking. All members, okay, all members of an ecological community are interconnected in a vast network of relations. Nothing stands alone by itself. We are all interconnected to each other. Well, in an ecosystem, in a forest, for instance, let's take the ecosystem of the forest. Well, whatever you see in the forest, the plants, the animals, the trees, and the soil, and the sunlight, the sun beams, and so forth, whatever you have in this forest, they are interrelated to each other. Okay, well, let's give an example of this interconnectedness, of this web of life, in the words of Friedrich Capra again. Well, let's see this interconnectedness in the Paris Climate Agreements solution to 1.5 degrees Celsius. So let's see this interconnectedness. Okay, well, as we said, the Paris Climate Agreement, which was signed in 2015 and ratified in 2016, well, the target is clear to keep the global warming at a maximum of 2 degrees, but possibly 1.5 degrees Celsius. Well, we have already increased the temperature of our Earth by 1 degree since the end of 19th century. So we have got only maximum 1 degree more in order to for increasing the average temperature of the world. Well, so the Earth's temperature is increasing since the end of 19th century. Well, this is also another chart which says that since the 18th century, the planet's Earth's temperature is increasing, and we have already increased it by 1 degree, and our maximum ceiling is 1.5 or 2 degrees. Well, what is the reason of global warming? Well, we all know by now that it is the emission of greenhouse gases as a result of our economic activities, as a result of the way we live, as a result of this current economic model, the greenhouse gases of methane, of carbon dioxide, and so forth. And these greenhouse gases covers our Earth like a thermal blanket, really, and most of the heat that's coming from the sun is absorbed by these greenhouse gases. So that is the reason of global warming. All right, the greenhouse gases nearly 70% is carbon dioxide, and then we have other gases. So what could be the solution to stop this warming, global warming? Well, we have to stop emitting these greenhouse gases, carbon dioxide and methane. Let's talk about carbon dioxide because most of the greenhouse gas is carbon dioxide. Well, the roadmap of Paris is so clear. It says that, well, we have to each 10-year decrease. Well, as a matter of fact, we also know that carbon dioxide is emitted because we are using fossil fuels like petroleum, like coal, like natural gas for our energy uses, and these burning fossil fuels emit carbon dioxide. So the plan is so clear. We have to cut our carbon dioxide emissions at net zero level by 2050. How can we do this? Every 10 years, starting from 2020. Well, starting from this year, we have to cut our emissions by half every decade. All right, so the plan is so clear. Therefore, this involves, if we are emitting carbon dioxide as a result of burning fossil fuels, this means that we have to convert to renewable energy. Very good. So it seems that in 20 or 30 years' time, we won't be seeing these gasoline stations anymore because we won't be using fossil fuels. So to stop using fossil fuels is one of the roadmaps of 1.5 degrees Celsius, but it is not enough. It is not enough to reach 1.5 degrees Celsius. There are other interconnected issues in our Earth system, in our lives, that we have to take care in order to have, in order to attain the 1.5 degree Celsius. Well, okay, one of them is renewable energy, convert to renewable energy, but we know that it is not enough. So what should we do? We should also, in order to be in conformity with the 1.5 degrees Celsius target of Paris climate, to be carbon neutral by 2050, we have to transform our entire agricultural system, which is not sustainable. Well, we know that 30% of emissions are coming from agriculture. Even this is not enough. The second pillar, we also have to take care of the natural carbon sinks, to enhance them and to take care of them. Well, what are these natural carbon sinks? Well, the oceans and the seas and the wetlands and the forests. All these natural carbon sinks are in fact absorbing 50% of the carbon dioxide of the greenhouse gases which we emit into the air. Even this is not enough. In order to reach 1.5 degree, we have to construct, this is an engineering construction, of course, artificial carbon capture systems, which in fact captures the carbon dioxide emitted into the air and buries them underneath the ground. So only within these four pillars, suppose we converted into renewable energy, suppose we transformed our agriculture, and suppose we protected and enriched our biodiversity, and also supposing that we constructed all these artificial carbon capture systems, there is only, even in this scenario, that we have only 66.6 chance of reaching the 1.5 degree centigrade. So this shows how everything is integrated to each other. An example from Paris policy. Well, if I have time, let me very briefly go to the second principle of our Earth system, how nature sustains life. Well, the second principle is cycles, as I've just said. Well, the movement in the nature is in cycles. And as a result of this, there is no waste in the planet. Okay, let's look at this very, very beautiful cherry tree. Well, there is no such waste in the nature. Well, we know everything falls on the ground. For instance, dead leaves fall on the ground, the branches fall on the ground, people die and we fall on the ground, animals fall, but we never become a waste. Well, as we fall on the ground, or as we rotten, or as we die, then we become food, a nutrient for another cycle. So this is how the nature flows. And also the natural cycles, we know the natural cycles, it's always in circulation. Look at the water cycle. The fresh water, which is so vital for us, is moving, its pattern is in a cycle, or the carbon cycle. Well, so this is how nature handles things. This is how these cycles, this cyclical pattern is the pattern of nature. But let's look at us, how we manage things. How are we doing things? How do we live? Well, this is the way we live, which we called our linear economic model. We take resources out, we produce, consume, and we waste. Take, make, waste system. There is no circularity. We take, we use, and we throw it away. So in our linear, this is the result of our linear, unfortunately, economic model. So the question is, how can we run our economies within the finite resources, which means within the planetary boundaries, so that we can have ecological sustainability? Recall that ecological sustainability means to live within the planetary boundaries. Well, because the linear economic model, the way we produce, the way we consume, it is really disrupting the system. Well, here are some data. So what can we do? How can we change this linear way of living? So this is the question, isn't it? How our economies can be in harmony with nature? How can we stay in the planetary boundaries so as to be ecologically sustainable? Well, the answer is, of course, to imitate nature. Why don't we imitate nature? We can imitate it. And the imitation is the circular economy, where circular economy, the world, main countries in the world are really shifting transforming their linear type of economic way of doing into a circular economy model. Well, this is the circular economy, is the new growth model, or the new industrial model, the green growth model of our sustainable world today. Well, in circular economy, I don't want to go in details, but well, circular economy is, it involves recycling, reuse, repair. What lies at the heart of circular economy is, of course, mimicking nature. And what lies at the heart of circular economy is what we take from nature, the raw materials, whatever, we turn back into the nature. So whatever we take from the nature, we use it, then we waste it, but then waste is introduced into another cycle. Let's see some examples. Well, of course, we have to use renewable energy because fossil fuels are finite resources. Well, this is very important. But this is an example from Nigeria, I suppose. Garbage in value. They give value to garbage. What they do is, this is Nigeria, they collect a variety of products, waste products, and they turn these waste products into very valuable toys or school products, whatever. This is an example, circular economy model from Nigeria. Well, this is from South Africa. This is a composting kitchen. Let me not go in very detail because I do not have time. Another example is from Holland. By the way, Holland and Denmark are the pioneers and are the heroes, let's say, of the circular economy. This is Plastic Whale Holland. They collect plastic from the sea, as you can see. And from this plastic, they produce these furnitures. So they are... So as I said, when you imitate nature, the third principle says that there is no waste in the nature. So whenever you have a waste, collect it and use it in another production cycle. Well, this is from Uganda. These guys, EcoBricks, are collecting plastics from households, and they are rebuilding bricks, I suppose, for construction. So there are many, many examples. This is the Netherlands closing the loops. This is Kenya, Green Africa, and so forth. Many examples. This is regenerative agriculture in order to restore and protect soil. Well, as we approach 2021, and as we are today in the Earth Day, we see a lot of circular economy platforms in all around the world. Well, in Europe, there are so many circular economy initiatives and platforms, but also in the third world, we have coalitions on circular economy. We have coalitions and alliances of circular economy. The green one is for Latin America, Coalition on Circular Economy. Then the other one is African Circular Economy. And the one, döngüsel ekonomiye geçiş, Türkiye Döngüsel Ekonomi Platformu, is the circular economy in Turkey. Well, so the two principles. Well, let me finish my words. Sururi, bir 5 dakikan var mı? Sururi'cim.
Hocam 15 dakikanız var.
15 dakika olmasın. 5 dakikada bitireyim. Belki sorular alabiliriz.
Peki, tamam, tabii ki.
So let me finish in 5 minutes. So, okay. Is there hope? That was the question which we were asking. Well, for instance, yes, there is definitely hope because the window of opportunity is still open to humanity. When I say the window of opportunity, I mean to construct ecologically and economically and socially sustainable lives. The window is still open. And we know that a new civilization, in a way, a new renaissance has been emerging in the world. For instance, let's give the example of the Green Deal, the European Green Deal. In Europe, EU countries, they have adopted the European Green Deal in 2019. Now the European Green Deal, which is on the one hand a carbon neutral agreement, but which is on the other hand a circular economy agenda. They have agreed on this European Green Deal till 2050, and European Green Deal has been accepted as the new growth strategy of Europe. This is Ursula von der Leyen, the President of the European Commission's words. If I quote from her, she says, the European Green Deal is our new growth strategy. It will help us cut emissions while creating jobs. And she will continue, in order to create jobs, we are going to convert into circular economy. But not only Europe, we also know that the Green Deal policies, these Green Deal agreements are spreading all around the world. Well, we expect Biden's from United States is going to agree upon a Green Deal. And also Canada is on the track of a Green Deal. Well, China, Xi Jinping, the president of China, not a Green Deal, but last year he announced that they are going to be carbon neutral by 2060. So the whole world, I mean, most of the nations, based on these two very important global agendas, the Paris Agreement and the Sustainable Development Agenda, all these nations have already started to embark this journey, this sustainability journey. So this is really very good news. That's why today we're having this Earth Day. That's why we're going to have, by the end of this year, the COP 2060, 26 conference of Paris, of the Paris Agreement. So we do have hope for sustainable lives, to live in a safe and resilient planet in prosperity and equality for all. Definitely, this is a new narrative. This is a second renaissance, in a way, for humanity, for all of us, for us to live on a safe planet. Well, the last thing I would like to add is, before thanking you, listening to me, what can we individually do? How can we contribute to this endeavor, to this ecological sustainability endeavor individually? What can we do? This is a very well, my students, an audience comes up to me and say, well, professor, well, okay, these are very good. All right, the plan is good, the agreements are good, but it is for the big international institutions and for the governments and for the big entities to handle all this. What are we going to do? I mean, we simple human beings, we simple citizens, how can we contribute? They say it is the job of the governments, of the international institutions, and of the big companies. Well, that's true in a sense, of course, without the contribution of the governments of each country, of international agencies, of UN agencies and other agencies, and also these companies, the big companies, the private sector. Of course, we cannot fulfill the roadmap, the 2015 roadmap. All right, that is true. But can we individually contribute? Is there a place for us, for youth, especially for young people, for us as well? Yes, definitely, very importantly. You know what? Well, as individuals, as students, or whatever you're doing, as professionals, first of all, you can learn about, you can investigate, and you can learn about what's going on in the world globally as you participate in this global Earth Day today. You can go into the internet, to your to Instagram, and learn about what's going on. Learn these things about climate thing, about sustainability, and so forth. Well, when you start learning, when you start reading, you know what happens? Well, you start sharing it with your friends on the Instagram or in your conversations, because when we learn things, when we learn new things, well, we share it with our friends, we talk to them, we write to them on the Instagram or in our conversations. But once we talk to our friends, once we share these knowledge with other people, you know what happens? You feel that responsibility. You start feeling the responsibility for a sustainable life in your individual life. So what we can do is, in our individual lives, we can try to live in a more sustainable way, try to adopt more sustainable lifestyles. Like, for instance, as I said, follow everything on the internet, on your Instagram, share it with your friends. For instance, we have to become friends with animals on the first hand, shouldn't we? Because to live, to be in harmony with nature means you have to be close to the things which are in the nature. So we have to become friends with dogs and with cats which live with us, which inhabit with us. Or, for instance, you can bring out very innovative ideas for your locality, for your community, and you can share these very innovative ideas with your friends, with the international community, and so forth. So start doing that. It really spreads like the waves in the sea, waves in the ocean. And as you start this journey, when you start this journey only by investigating on the Instagram or internet, you start feeling the responsibility. You start feeling to live responsibly or sustainably in this world. Thank you very much for listening. Çocuklar, bitirdim ben. Sururi'cim, acaba duyuluyor muyuz?
Evet hocam, evet.
Acaba sorusu olanlar var mı diye soralım mı?
Olur tabii ki hocam.
Stop sharing. Have you got any questions? Let's see who have been, well, we are all Turkish here. Ama yine de İngilizce konuşalım. Let's speak English, because these are going to be, I suppose, well, I'm not sure, but I suppose they will be on YouTube for everybody to listen. Are there any questions? Birkaç soru sorun çocuklar, hani katılmış gibi olun. Let's have a question from who? Maybe Sururi, have you got anything to say? Neyle bitirelim Sururi'cim? Ne şekilde bitirelim? Belki benim söylediklerimle bitirmek yeterli mi dersin?
Hocam, evet, yani siz daha uygun görürseniz.
Olur. Senin bir sorun var mı canım? Sen belki bir şey sorarsın.
Hocam,
Türkçe yani.
Türkçe sorabilirim, evet.
Türkçe sor. Well, you ask me in English, ben onu translate edeceğim İngilizceye.
Olur, tamam. Bazı konularda bazı insanların bu ekolojik bu arada soru geldi. Ben tekrar sorayım. Chat'te görebiliyor musunuz hocam? Pervin Şenol bir soru sormuş.
Okay, Pervin Şenol, how are you, my dear friend? Yes, thank you very much for contributing to our live lecture on this very valuable Earth Day. And I am in university campus now, and my computer voice is broken. My students are now from, okay, I think they want to ask some questions. Please let me hear the questions, Pervin. Well, but I think they want to ask questions, but we cannot receive the questions. Alabiliyor muyuz soruları Sururi'ciğim?
Evet
Sen
hocam.
sormaya devam edersen. Ben
şu anda chatte bir soru daha var hocam. Görebiliyor musunuz?
Oh, okay. First of all, thank you very much for sharing. This is from Pınar, one of our co-founders, one of the co-founders of our association, sharing this valuable information. What's important in economic transformation for Turkey? Well, what is important for the economic transformation? I think you are talking about circular. How can Turkey adapt a circular economy model, and how can Turkey become carbon neutral in the coming years? I think you are asking this. Well, first of all, Pınar, thank you very much for your question. Well, first of all, Turkey, our country. Well, our country is a very big country, a powerful country. We have very rich resources, human resources, and all kinds of natural resources. But there's a problem with regards to Paris Agreement. Although we signed the Paris Agreement in 2015, unfortunately, we haven't ratified it in our parliament yet due to some technical issues. So we hope that Turkey, in the very short time, ratify the Paris Agreement in its parliament. And after ratifying the Paris Agreement in its parliament, will construct a new roadmap, a more ambitious plan for carbon dioxide emission and greenhouse emission cutting plans. That's what we hope. So this is the first step which our country should take. And we know that the government and the civil society, the government are preparing for that, presumably for this for the COP26. Well, with regards, again, carbon neutrality by 2050, as we know, we are using a lot of coal. Because we are rich of coal, we are using a lot of coal. We've got a lot of coal plants. So we have to find ways to somehow transform these coal plants or close up these coal plants and therefore pass to transform to renewable energy. And for circular economy, well, to transform our linear economic model to circular economic models, this is for the business sector, of course. The business sector in Turkey, in all the cities, is already very keen about this. They are working on this. And so there's hope. Thank you for your question. Sureri'cim, senin sorun neydi?
Hocam ben bir kavramı anlayamıyorum. Onu size sormak istemiştim. Çevresel adaletten bahsediyorsunuz ya bazen. Bugünkü konuşmada da vardı. Ben bu çevresel adaleti tam olarak kafamda oturtamıyorum. Nedir mesela çevresel adalet? Çevre dediğimiz buradaki çevre hangi çevre?
Well, in English it is ecological justice veya environmental justice de olabilir. Türkçe cevap vereyim ilk önce. Çevre dediğimiz gezegenin kendisi, yeryüzünün kendisi. Hani dedik ya, ekolojik olarak sürdürülebilir bir toplum demek, ekolojik olarak sürdürülebilir yaşamlar demek, gezegenin dayanıklı ve güvenli bir gezegende yaşamak demek. Ama gezegenimizi dayanıklı ve güvende tutmanın yolu, gezegenimizi güvenli ve dayanıklı tutmanın yolu ise, hani göstermiştim ya 9 tane gezegensel sınır, o gezegensel sınırları aşmamamız gerek. Yani gezegenimizin 3,5 milyar yıldır hatırladığım kadarıyla gezegenimizin üzerinde sürdürdüğü bir yaşam var, değil mi? 3,5, biz yokken de vardı bu yaşam. Bu sürdürdüğü bir yaşam var. Bu yaşam belli prensiplere dayalı, belli sınırları var. Şimdi o sınırlarını zorlarsak gezegenimizin, işte buzullarını erittirsek, havasını, atmosferini ısıtırsak, biyoçeşitliliğini yok edersek, değil mi? O zaman bu gezegenimiz bu kendisini yeniden yaratma kapasitesini kaybedebilir. İşin aslı şu ki, Gezegenimiz bu kapasiteyi kaybeder ama gezegene bir şey olmaz. Bir bahar temizliğinde bizi üstünden atıverir, kendi yine başka bir state'te devam eder. Buradaki adalet kavramı ise şunu söylemek istiyor. Diyor ki tıpkı diğer insanlarla olduğu gibi gezegenimizin de sınırlarının farkına var diyor bize. Çünkü gezegenin de sınırları var diyor. O sınırları ihlal etmeye kalkarsan bak işte başına fırtınalar falan gelir diyor. Tıpkı diğer insanlarla olan ilişkimiz de böyle değil midir sevdiklerimizle, en yakınımızla bile onların sınırlarını ihlal etmememiz gerek. Onların haklarını bizden çok farklı düşünseler bile. Değil mi? Irkı, cinsi farklı bile olsa değil mi? Onların haklarını ihlal etmemeliyiz. Kendimizinkini de ettirmemeliyiz. İşte adalet böyle bir anlamda. İlişkilerimizde adil olmak yani. Bilmiyorum açıklayabildim mi?
Evet, evet hocam. İyice kafamda oturdu. Çok teşekkür ederim.
Bir şey değil artık bunu İngilizceye çevirmesem de olur diye düşünüyorum.
Nasıl? Hocam bir soru, yok soru değilmiş.
Pınar loved our expression about the cherry tree. Thank you very much for this. Yes, it is. Well, in fact, I was inspired. That is not my invention. I was inspired from Ellen MacArthur in that cherry tree. I have to talk about Ellen MacArthur. Well, Ellen MacArthur is a foundation, is an international foundation, which is really working on circular economy. And Ellen MacArthur is a very lovely lady who is the founder of this foundation. Well, I really recommend my friends to go to Ellen MacArthur's site and to learn about this lovely lady, Ellen MacArthur. So it is from her. It is a quote from her, the lovely cherry tree. That's how she expresses it. She says everything falls on the ground, the branches of the cherry tree, but they are never waste. They become nutrient for the soil and for other things. Yeah. It's really very beautiful. Thank you very much, my dear.
Hocam bir soru daha geldi. Eğer zaman ayırabilirseniz.
Yes, of course. In our country, this is from Oğuzhan Karaçetin. Thank you very much, dear Oğuzhan. In our country, associations, I think NGOs, try to pressure the government rather than companies to protect nature. Actually, normally, it should be the opposite. What do you think about the subject? Well, the associations try to pressure the government rather than the companies. Well, I suppose you're talking about the non-governmental organizations or civil society organizations. Well, the civil society organization contribution is, of course, very important. Well, but as far as I know, the civil society organizations not only try to convey their messages to the national and regional governments, but they're also trying to convey their messages to the business sector, as far as I know. If they are not, well, of course, this is very important. But the important thing is, one thing I would like to point out, in Turkey, for instance, the business sector is very keen about, not only in Turkey, in fact, in the entire world, the business sector is very keen about, is very ambitious about this Paris Climate Agreement and the carbon neutrality and the circular economy. Why? Well, because they're entities that work for profit. They have to sell their commodities. They have to produce, and they should be able to sell their commodities. So if they do not comply with the international rules, which is going to be more circular as time passes on, well, they cannot do business. So as a matter of fact, the business sector, not only in Turkey, in the entire world, also sees the climate issue, circular economy issue, and all these ecological sustainability issues, the Green Deal, the European Green Deal, as one of their most important subjects. So maybe there is no need to push them. They already are in the agenda. Thank you very much, Oğuzhan. Thank you very much for your moderation, and thank you very much for all the participants. Well, and we're congratulating the last day of the Earth Day and wishing you a nice week. Bye-bye. Thank you for listening.